We should be live here. We will give this just a moment for other people to sign on. But it is 1 o'clock. We'll give this just about 1 or 2 more minutes here. I can't tell if anybody is online, but I want to give everybody as much time to hop on here. I know people have stuff that they are doing. So we will we'll be here. We'll start just a moment. I don't know. I don't want to keep anybody waiting. Looks like we have a couple people popping in here. I hope you guys can hear me. Do me a favor, if you are on this this Hangout, do me a favor. There should be a chat box over to the left-hand side. If you kind of hover your mouse, go ahead and just type here. Let me know that you're here, because I can't tell again who's on and who's not. I want to zip through this so that we're not late. So if you could go to the chat box and just put your name in there, say that you are you're going, and we'll jump right in and we'll get started. Very good. I know since we have a few viewers on, that's great. Again, go to the chat box if you can, and go ahead and put in your name so that I can just kind of get an idea as to who is joining us, and we can go from there. All right, I see Chris is on. Very cool. Okay, so we're going to jump right into this. I apologize again for the late start. We are 4 minutes behind. And we'll be expedient here. Hopefully everybody can see me. Today, I just want to say good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to hop on here and learn some new tricks and information that will really benefit you and help you out. I think it's really really cool when people aren't afraid to learn new things and kind of, you know, add some stuff to their tool belt, so to speak, and they can go from there and really take it wherever we go. I want to set the expectation right off the bat. We're going to do this in 2 parts for Photoshop. We're going to do the first part today. We're going to do the second part on Thursday. I did that so that we don't overwhelm you with information, so that we don't kind of make your head spin. And secondly, I want to just use this opportunity to give you some basics. This, by no means, what you learn today will make you. No one's going to hire you at their ad firm to do design, right? This is just kind of the basics. It's reminiscent. I'm a big Star Wars fan. It's reminiscent of that scene in the very first Star Wars when Luke tells Obi-Wan, because I could feel something. I could actually see it. And Obi-Wan says, you've taken your first step into a much larger world. And that's really what the premise of these webinars are going to be. It's going to give you a foundation so that you can take it and you can kind of run with it and kind of add to it on your own. We'll do that. If there's any questions, if you have anything to respond with, I'll ask that you use the question box or that you use the chat box in this Hangout. That way, if it doesn't get answered throughout the presentation, I will take time at the end and we will answer those questions. A little bit of a background on me, so you know who I am and what I'm about. My name is Nicholas Ayers. I'm an agency owner here in Northern California at I-80 Insurance Solutions, located in Northern California, just right between Sacramento and San Francisco, kind of right in the middle there. Been in the business now for a decade, and I absolutely love it. Before I ever got into the insurance industry, before I even graduated high school, I've been working as a freelance graphic designer and a videographer. I didn't go to school for anything. I don't have any degrees. I don't have any diplomas. I am self-taught. Everything that I know has come by way of trial and error and just by practicing and figuring it out. I spent a lot of time many years ago making some really ugly, crappy things. And you just kind of learn from there. My design background centers around print advertising and video work. While I can design things for a website, I am by no means a web designer. That is not my specialty. That's not my strong point. I specialize in just doing things for print design, publications, things like, you know, from the very basic and small, like stationery, business cards, envelopes, things of that nature, to the very large, you know, magazines and working with and for large commercial print presses and printing houses. So I design for print and video. I don't design for web. That's more Chris's specialty. And today is this two-part series on Adobe Photoshop, and I'm going to share my screen here so that we can kind of get into it. To forgive me, I'm doing this one at a time. Okay, so hopefully you guys can all see that. Today we are doing Adobe Photoshop. Which is the program. Adobe is the parent company, and the thing about Photoshop is we've turned Photoshop into a verb. It's its own terminology, similar to how people used to call it Xeroxing. Now we call it Photoshopping, and we refer to it as manipulating or editing an image. Adobe is the company, and they've created these products. That really are the giants and the staples of the industry. Adobe creates professional branding. And most of the things that you see today in marketing or anywhere that you see imaging or branding is usually all done and created in some sort of Adobe program. It's all done on one of their programs. And if you're a designer in the industry, whether you do very little or you do everything exclusively design, you have some familiarity, if not exclusive usage in some sort of Adobe program. The one thing I really like about Adobe is that their stuff all really works really well together. What I create in Photoshop, what you create in Photoshop, can seamlessly be used in any other Adobe program, which is really helpful. The other thing that I really like, it's probably the biggest for me, is that learning these programs is not as difficult or as overwhelming as you think. Think of it this way, and I use this analogy. There's one language, we'll call it the Adobe language. And there's many different dialects within that language. When you become proficient in, say, Photoshop, then learning things like Illustrator and Premiere and InDesign, any other Adobe program, it becomes very seamless and very easy. It's very simple to pick up on certain things because you already have a grasp, you already have a foundation for how these programs work. The language is all very similar. The layouts and interfaces are all very similar. They're just used for different things. And so that's one thing I really like about it is you don't have to, you're not feeling as though you have to learn 10 different programs. To a degree you do, but it's very small. You are really just learning one language and maybe picking up a few different dialects that help you kind of work your way through the different things. You can be an Adobe user by subscribing to their monthly service. which is $50 a month. That's what I pay. I pay $50 a month. It's called Adobe Creative Cloud, and in that, it's a subscription service to where I can use every single Adobe program, which I want to say there's like 15 of them, it feels like. I can use any one of them for what is $600 a year. It gives me all the tools and everything that I need to do, from print to web to video design and everything in between. It's a $600 a year investment. You can do a la carte, where you're just picking up Photoshop or you're just picking up Illustrator, and I'm sure that the price is a lot less. I never looked at it that way, just because I knew I had a lot more that I needed to do. And you might be sitting there saying to yourself now, this is too hard, and I really don't know if I can do all this. How much time will it take, etc. And as someone who's seen many of the program updates, who's seen it all throughout the years with this software, and kind of done my fair share of freelance work, I strongly feel this, and I hope this helps. I strongly feel that when it comes to branding and taking control of this aspect of your agency, that the technical knowledge is roughly 20% of the whole thing. Learning these programs is really 20% of the whole thing. What is the other 80% is your own creativity and your own mindset in going forward. Once you learn some basics, you'll only really be restrained by your own creativity. So don't feel overloaded or intimidated. And speaking of creativity, a wise man once said that the secret to creativity is knowing how to hide your sources. I picked that up very early on when I was a young teenager learning this stuff. There's nothing new under the sun. You can make cool things and concepts and all that stuff, but the art to creativity is to learn how to conceal your sources. And what I mean by that is, when I first started making my stuff, and this will help you guys, give you guys a direction. When I first started making my stuff, I would find things that were really cool or hip or relevant or whatever. I'd go and I'd look at different magazines. I did a lot of design work for a lot of different bands and kind of counterculture type things with teenagers and college-age students. And I would go to I'd go to the store and I'd pick up a skateboarding magazine or a snowboarder magazine or a surfing magazine or something, and I would just almost duplicate a lot of the same types of styles and things that I saw happening. As I got older, I would start to do the same thing with things like Newsweek or other different publications. I'd look on TV, I'd see what was cool, what was being used. Today, if you look at a lot of the stuff that I make, it's very similar in feel. I try to, anyways. Very similar in feel to things like that you would see on Comedy Central or AMC or things of that nature, things that are more relevant, Netflix, things that, I figure it this way. People hire these companies hire these people and spend millions of dollars a year on marketing to figure out what is cool. The best thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just steal it and make it my own. So that's what I mean by the secret to creativity is knowing how to hide your sources. You don't have to plagiarize or duplicate. Just use it as a direction, as a way to kind of channel where you want to go. And if you see something that you like, then figure out how to do that very thing and put it in your own branding. Make it your own. Make it your own personality, and you'll be off and running. So on to Photoshop. In graphic design, you have two types of images. You have what is called a vector image, and you have what is called a raster image. If you've ever worked with a company that does apparel, promotional items, etc., you've probably heard the term vector art. The other kind of art is raster, or a raster image. It is the only type of image that Photoshop can make, and this is important to know. It's the only, Photoshop only has the capabilities of working and creating raster images. And I'll give you the technical definition and the practical definition here in a second. The egghead definition is this. Raster images are dependent on resolution and pixels. You've probably heard of the term high-res or high-resolution image. This refers to a raster image. Think of a photograph. Think of when you're out and you're taking pictures or something like that. Those are raster images. This refers to things being made up of little small pixels that, when small enough, they make a clear picture, like you see here, right? So here, zoomed out, it looks like a rose. Zoomed in, it looks awful. So it's these little teeny squares of color and information that make up an image. when they are enlarged, it loses quality and it looks blurry or pixelated. You've probably seen something where you stretch it out, or you've seen it just used because someone didn't know what they were doing. And in the photograph, it looked really blurry or really pixelated, just really ugly. Raster images have an important role, and they're necessary for things like photographs. Where they are not good is, and where they're not to be used, is places like logos, text, or anything that will ever be enlarged. For this, you'll want a vector image, which is created in Adobe Illustrator. One thing about raster-based images is that they create very large file sizes. So be careful when working with them. They take up a lot of space on your computer. You can hardly ever email them because their file size is so massive. A vector image is simply put, is not dependent on resolution, but it uses mathematical expressions instead. So you can make an image like a logo as big, as small as you want to, and it will never lose quality. Vector art is best for anything that is printed, or if it's ever going to be exported outside of your computer screen, then you want to use vector art or anywhere possible. So with Photoshop, I never ever use it to create different pages or page layout. I never make flyers. I never make newsletters. I never make any of those types of things with it, because those things are better served and better made in Illustrator or InDesign. Can you do those things in Photoshop? Yes. Is it what it's really built to do? No. Again, it makes a really large file size. It's hard to work with. If you give it to a professional, they're going to say, redo this half the time, or they're going to charge an arm and a leg to do it. So I make certain elements that can be brought over to these other programs, but I never start and I never start and end in Photoshop. If what I'm doing will be printed or seen outside of my computer ever, then I do it in another program. I use Photoshop really for the following things, and these are some of the things that we're going to go over. I use it for picture editing. I use it for computer graphics. I use it for social media graphics, and I use it for different video graphics. So with that foundation set, let's get into the webinar, and we're going to, I believe that's the last slide. That is the last slide. We're going to get into Photoshop here, and I was working in something. I'm going to close this out. I hope everybody's taking good notes. I hope this isn't overwhelming. So I'm going to share my screen again. When I open up Photoshop, this is what I see. Okay. When I open up Photoshop, I see this interface. Up top here, I have, different things like file, edit, image, layer. Down here, I have my tool panel, right, that has the different tools that I use. Over here to the right, I have my navigator, which will allow me to zoom in and out of a file, if I want to zoom in on something and see it closer. Here is my history tab. This will fill up as I start working with different things. Think of this as your Control-Alt-Delete in a list form. You can go back. And then here's my character panel. The one thing about Photoshop is that Photoshop uses layers. And so I'll have a layers thing here. So if I create a new file, the first thing we're going to make is we're going to create a very simple Facebook cover page. I'm going to show you how to do that. It's not going to be anything extravagant. It's going to be simple, which is what Facebook covers should really be. But it's going to be very very basic. Now, a Facebook cover page, I already know, is a particular size, and I'll put the link that points you into the different templates and how to create these things. But I know that it is 851 pixels wide. Pixels is just another measurement form. And I know that it's 315 pixels high. I'm going to leave all this other information here the same because it's not really important. The resolution is fine at 72 since I'm not printing anything. And that gives me a blank canvas. Now, if you go over here, you notice that it created this layer called background. The way Photoshop works is it works within layers. So everything that you do is on its own layer. So you can move it around and edit it individually. So I have a white background. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a very simple Facebook cover page for our agency. And in doing that, I'm going to create a new layer. And I can do that by coming down here on the Layers tab, and I can just click New Layer. So when I do that, you can see it creates another layer here. It's called layer 1. I'm going to fill this with, I'm going to make one for the agency. So we're going to use our color, which is I-80 orange. And all I did is I went over here to the color tab to select the color. On my toolbar, I'm going to select the paint can. If you're familiar with MS Paint or anything else, some of this is very familiar. Right? Very simple. I'm going to fill it up. Now you can see it differentiates there between the two layers. I have the background layer and I have my orange colored background. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to bring in my logo. So I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm going to bring in my logo. Oh, wrong file. Sorry. Open. Right. This is our logo in just black. I'm going to separate it here from the window. Very simple, transparent background. All I'm going to do is I'm going to make my selection tool here so that I can grab it. And I'm just going to simply hold down on the logo and I'm going to bring it over. I'm going to minimize this bad boy. So that's really big, right? I mean, the image is bigger than my canvas. So I want to shrink this down. The way that I would shrink it down is while I have my selection tool selected here, I'm going to go to this box that gives me the transform controls. Transform, just simply put, allows me to transform the shape, or in this case, it's going to be the shape. If I wanted to change the perspective, I could do that too. But it puts this box around it that allows me to change the image. Whenever I shrink anything, I always do it proportionally by holding down the Shift key and shrinking it down proportionally so that it doesn't look like it's out of proportion. So I'm going to shrink my logo. I'd say we'll make it about that big. So if I just click back on the control panel, it says, do I want to apply this? Simply put, yes. If you go here, you can see how it's already a new layer. I have a layer for the logo. I have a layer for the color. I can move this around and I can put it in the center of the page. Right? I'm going to raise it up a little bit because I think what I want to do is I want to add a little shadow underneath. So very simple, right? But if I go here back to my tools panel, it gives me this option where I can either make a selection with like a rectangle. I can make it any shape I want. Obviously, if I want to do a shadow underneath, that's not going to be the right shape. So I'm going to go to the elliptical tool, and I'm going to create. Here I can create circles. Different size and shapes circles. I'm going to go under here underneath. I'm just going to make a little shadow. And by doing that, I'm going to make this elliptical about yay big. I'm going to create a new layer. And I'm going to make it black like a shadow. Right? Now, obviously that doesn't look like a shadow. It looks just like a hole in an Acme Looney Tunes cartoon that the coyote falls through. So I want to make this look more like a shadow, and by doing that, you have to give it some of the characteristics that a shadow has. A shadow is more opaque. A shadow is more blurry looking, especially from a distance. It's not as easily prevalent. So I simply just want to blur this up a little bit. And by doing that, I'm going to go up here to filter. I'm going to come down to my blur filter. I'm going to apply what I like is my favorite type of blur, which is Gaussian blur. And you can kind of see how this starts to take shape, right? Yeah, I'd say that's about right. So now it looks more like a shadow, but it's still too dark. It just doesn't look very good. So if I come back over here to my Layers tab, I'm still on this layer. I want to change the opacity. This makes it more opaque, right? Just makes it look a little bit more subtle, right? Where you can see that it's there, but it's not drawing all the attention to it, right? So now what I want to do is I want to add, maybe some more depth here to this color because this is kind of boring. Maybe I want to add a little bit of texture to the background. That's very simple. I already have an image that I want to use, which is this piece of paper. So what I want to do is, again, just like I did with the logo, I'm going to drag it over here. and I'm going to rearrange the layer by simply putting it behind the logo, but in front of the orange here. And I'm just going to change the opacity on this. And you can kind of tinker with it, but you can kind of see how that just kind of gives it a little bit of texture, makes it a little bit different looking. Now, if I want to add any text to this, I could. If I wanted to say, well, we do auto home life business. And that's obviously very small there, so I'm going to select it here. And by the way, I just went over to my characters thing, created a new layer automatically for me, and I started typing. But I want to make it bigger, so I'm going to do that simply by, and obviously we want to fix the typos. And that's not any better. But auto home life business, I can, put it down there at the bottom. And voila, if I want to use this, I can. If I want to continue to edit some of the colors, I can. But it's pretty simple. Another thing I can do is if I rearrange the layers here, I can do that and change if it gives me a little bit different effect. Sometimes it will. But I can use that just as a Facebook cover. I can save it as a JPEG, simply by save as. Go down here and I can save it as a JPEG. I can save it as a Photoshop file. I can save it as a PDF, whatever I want to do. Obviously, Photoshop will only work with JPEG, so I would have to save it as so. And there you go. That's a simple, relatively easy Facebook cover page. You can work with any type of image to bring that in. You can make it look however you want. The big takeaway here and where I would get creative is, use different images, use different backgrounds, try to make it look how you want it to look, and it's relatively simple. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to show you how to create a meme. Memes are very popular. Memes are very simple and easy to make. Very, 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 very cool. You can make a meme just by doing anything. So I'm going to create one. I have this image that I have of Chuck Norris that is pretty awesome. I'm going to create a meme that I can use on Instagram. I know that Instagram photos are 612 pixels by 612 pixels. Again, I will provide the link that shows you all these so you know them. I just know what they are from doing them, but you'll be able to reference back to them and see what a Facebook cover page is, what an Instagram photo is, what a YouTube cover page or a Twitter cover page is, and you can make your own. Okay? So I want to bring old Chuck I want to get old Chuck here onto my new canvas. I'm going to the same way I shrunk the logo. I'm going to shrink Chuck here. Sorry, I'm going to shrink old Chuck down by holding down Shift and making him fit within my box. Again, there's lots of other ways to accomplish these things. I'm just trying to show you the most simple ways to do it. Right? So we know Chuck is all fit in there. And I want to create a meme. Now, a meme has text on the top and text on the bottom. You can make this however you want it. I think I'm going to create the headline, I-80 Insurance insures all of my guns. And typical font for a meme is Impact. It's on every computer. I'm going to make this a little bigger. I'm going to continue to make it even a little bit bigger than this, maybe 34. Chuck Norris insures all my, or IAD insurance insures all my guns. I'm going to give this its own shadow. By doing that, I can manipulate the text here and give it its own shadow by going over to Layer, Layer Style, and I can add its own little drop shadow. Kind of makes it stand out a little bit more. Right? And I want to give it its own outline. Let me bring this over here. I'm going to give it a drop shadow. I'm going to give it its outline, right? Make it look a little bit more like a meme. You can tinker with it. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm just going to make a copy of this by grabbing onto it and dragging it down here to New Layer. That makes a copy of it. So IAD Insurance insures all my guns. All 4 of them. Get it? Because he has, you get it. And I can make this bigger. Right? And I can bam, that's done. Memes are very simple. They're very easy to use. I would probably encourage you that once you start making them, or once you start learning these things, that these be things that you, these memes will be something that you practice on, because you can make them look very stupid and no one cares because it's a meme. Allows you to kind of sharpen some of your skills and learn your way around some things. I can save that as a JPEG and I can put that on my, Facebook page, which I'll probably do afterwards, just because I thought that was pretty clever actually. So. I can save that, but that's how you make a meme. Again, the important thing is to make sure that your canvas size is the right size, which I have at 612 pixels by 612 pixels. This will fit perfectly into Instagram. And then you can drag an image to it and create a text headline and a text footer that is the butt of your joke. Again, what I would do is I'd research. If you go online and Google search, memes or insurance memes, you'll spend hours laughing at the stupidity that people put online. But the reason why they're so cool is because people, they're so popular is because people actually look at them. And, you get a good one, people will share it. So just another way to market your agency. Gives you some different tricks and tools. You could put I could put my logo in here if I wanted to. I won't. But that's pretty simple there. The next thing I want to show you, I'm going to save this. I don't want to save. I'm going to show you how to edit a picture. Again, just kind of going through the list here. These are different things that you can take and use as a foundation to really start to use however you want to use. I just want to give you some basic tools. In part 2, we'll get a little bit more in depth. But if I want to edit a picture, we all have headshots, and if there's one thing I know from experience, just from dealing with a lot of different headshots with people, is that people are extremely finicky about their headshot. And I always want to tell people, guys, it's just a headshot. Nobody cares about it. It's on your business. No one cares how red your lips are on your business card. They just don't care. It doesn't make or break any deals. But again, people are super finicky about their headshots. They got to have it just right. And so I've spent a lot of time editing headshots. So I'm gonna edit one, and because I know he wouldn't mind, I'm gonna pick on. Let's see, who can I pick on? I'm gonna pick on my buddy Grant here. This is Grant's headshot. Right now, from the get-go, it doesn't look like there's anything wrong with that headshot, right? And there's really not. But let's say Grant came to me and he said, Nick, I need you to airbrush this a little bit or make me look a little bit better. I can certainly do that. So I usually start just with a couple things here that make pictures really stand out and make things really pop. And I want to preface this by saying this is in no way any slight to my buddy Grant. This is just an example. I'm sure he will probably laugh at what the end result looks like. But I usually start with some very basic things, especially if they're smiling or showing teeth, or if they've got really if they got kind of eyes kind of like Grant's. I don't know how I would describe these, but I would touch up the teeth, I would touch up the eyes, and I touch up some of the lighting on the face. So before I do that, I'm going to zoom back out here, and I just want to kind of change a little bit of the lighting on the photo. I'm going to do that by hitting Control L for levels. I'm going to change the different levels on Grant's picture here. You see if I drag this here, how it kind of brings out more the brights. If I drag it this way, obviously we don't want to do that, but I want to kind of just give a little bit more contrast here that kind of separates Grant from the background. I'm going to hit OK so you can see what it looks like before, after. All right, we're already making some progress here. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to kind of, it doesn't matter who this is, I'm going to probably always do these things because they're details and people like the details. I'm going to touch up Grant's teeth here, and I'm going to do that very simply by coming on my Tools tab, and I want to go to the Dodge tool, right? And the Dodge tool allows me to kind of take some of the color out here, and I'm going to make something that's more appropriate for his size teeth, which will go 30. Okay, just making sure it works there. Okay, so I'm going to kind of touch this up. You can hardly tell what I'm doing here just by looking at it, but it'll make a difference once we zoom out. Okay, I'm just kind of touch this up a little bit. I'm sure Grant will appreciate it. So will his dentist. I don't want to overdo it too much. As you can see, I've already overdone it. So I'm going to go back a little bit here. Obviously, the teeth in the front, you have to think a little bit. The teeth in the front are going to be naturally more bright than the teeth in the back. Right. So now I can zoom out, and Grant's got a little bit more pearly whites here. So if I go back, see, you can already see the difference here. And you don't have to do it to the extreme that I did it, but there's that. I also like to touch it on the eyes a little bit. And so I'm going to kind of come into his eye here, and I'm going to kind of mess with some of these highlights. Look at those blue eyes. So now we've added some brightness there. I want to kind of enhance the shadows. So now we're going to go from the Dodge tool to the Burn tool. And it's pretty much the opposite effect. Right? It's like you're putting makeup on a woman. Not that I would have any idea how to do that, but you get the point. Kind of want to take some of the shadows out of his eyes. So we're going to do that. I'm going to give it a little bit of a bigger brush here. Makes him look more young, more a little too much. We could spend more time on this. We won't spend a whole lot of time, but again, going back to what it looks like originally, what it looks like now, you can kind of see a difference there. Kind of make his eyes pop a little bit more. I also want to, you know, work on his head a little bit, maybe bring out some more highlights. I don't want to frost his hair, but I want to just kind of work with it and just kind of touch it up a little bit. This is pretty much what you would think of as airbrushing. I'm sorry, I couldn't help but laugh. You know, we're making them to look kind of freakish on purpose here, but just to kind of show you what you can do. I'm going to create a new layer here, and I kind of want to touch up some of his skin, right? I'm going to select a color that's pretty close to his skin tone there. And I'm just going to kind of use my paintbrush to just take out some of this shine. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger brush. Right? Obviously, that looks kind of fake. Right? So we're going to change the opacity here. We're just doing this just to kind of dole out the shine on his head. So I'm sorry, Grant. Forgive me. But you see kind of what he looks like there. You can go all day and make people look however you want, but this is making Grant a turning Grant into a glamour shot. You can see the difference. You can see kind of what we've done so far. So that's a great way on editing your images. There's so much more that you can do here. You can blur out the background a little bit more. You can make some more shadows, in some of the different parts of his body to highlight some different things. Think of it, ladies, like you're putting on makeup. That's a great way to edit your headshot, make you look like you were 20 years younger. Because it is super important, right? So, but in doing this, whether it's a headshot or whether it's a picture of a car that you're touching up, or whether it's a background, there's all kinds of different ways that you can edit your photography, edit your images so that it is, like you want it to be. And that's just a really quick way of doing things. So we've examined, we went over how to create a Facebook cover page. We showed you how to make a meme, and we showed you how to touch up some photos. Some real basic tools. I'm going to turn it back over here to the questions. I'm going to see if we have any questions whatsoever. I don't know if we do or not. Awesome, we got a lot of people on here. So, does anybody have anything that they want me to run through to show them? Do they have any questions whatsoever? I have everybody's microphone muted, so if you could use the question and answer tab. Let me know if there's anything that you're interested in seeing, anything that you want me to show you how to do. If you have any questions about Adobe Photoshop or just the Adobe platform whatsoever, let me know. Anybody whatsoever? How to create a PNG file thing? Yes. Okay. So looks like Derek wants to know how. Nick, any chance you can show us how to create a ping file thingy? The logo with no background. Absolutely. So I will demonstrate that really quick. I'm going to do it with my logo. I don't want to say Grant here. Doesn't Grant look like a beautiful woman? He does. Let me screen share this back. I'm going to start from scratch. Again, this is my logo. I'm kind of at the end phase here. So let's start with a new file. We can make it whatever size we want to make it. I hope everybody can see that. I'm going to make it whatever size. Again, we'll just leave it on here, 612 by 612. You see how it gives me this white background? I don't want the white background. The reasons why it's white is because I left it on there when I hit a new file. So if you come, I'll show you how to make it without this, but I'll show you how to delete this once you get it. I'm going to bring my logo in. I'm going to shrink it down to size. I'm going to apply it. Yes, we're okay, right? So you can see here, or hopefully you can. Sorry. So you can see here on the layers tab, there's the background layer and there's this layer. Well, I don't want the background layer in there because that doesn't allow me to accomplish what we want to accomplish. So I'm simply going to drag it down here to the trash can. And now I have the transparent background. You know it's transparent when you see this checkerboard background, right? It's transparent that way. So simply put, I'm going to save as. And I can save it as a PNG file. And there you go. Voila. Does that help, Derek? I'm going to assume that's a yes. Any other questions or anything else that anybody else would want to see? We're a little early. Let's see. When you use a picture of Chuck as a meme, do you have to get permission to use the image? Great question. You know, to be honest with you, I have no idea. I can tell you this: I've never ever gotten in trouble for anything like that. I simply grab things off of Google Imaging. I type in Chuck Norris, and Chuck Norris comes up, and I copy and paste. I also have altered the image, so I do believe there's something to be said when you change the image around. It's not in its pure forms. And so I can't honestly answer that question. I can tell you that I've never, ever, ever, and I've done this hundreds and thousands of times, I've never, ever had a problem. So I guess I would say go at your own risk. I mean, it's a picture of Chuck Norris, for goodness sake. I don't know. People are weird. So, but yeah, so I hope that helps. I've never had a problem with it. Anybody else? Anything else that you would want to see or have a question on? I think everything's kind of out of order, so let me scroll down. Photoshop is an excellent program, again, to create imaging. I would never, ever do page layout. I would never lay out a business card. I would never lay out my envelopes. I would never do a newsletter. Can you do those things? You absolutely can. It is not recommended that you do them. It is recommended that you use other programs for that, like Adobe Illustrator. You can create some of the elements of a business card, of your logo. You can do that in Photoshop, but always bring them in. So Russ Castle says, I've been fined by Getty a $750 fine for using an image. That is hefty. Yeah, I mean, I'd say you go at your own risk. I can't tell you what is, I've never, no one's ever said, hey, you can't use that picture of Chuck Norris. So I guess proceed with caution. Getting back to it, you can create certain elements for your website, for your branding in Photoshop, but just use it as that. Never start and finish in Photoshop unless you're just editing an image, changing a photograph. And I'd also recommend doing this. This is a great way that I learned how to do a lot of different things, is go to Google, and it's a lot better now, but just type in Photoshop tutorials. You type in Photoshop tutorials, there's so many resources online that will show you how to do something. They'll have 100 different things there that'll say create this, and you can create, it'll take you step by step on how to create it. It's doing the same thing I'm doing, just a little easier. It's all in written form, step by step instructions that you can do, and just mess around with it. You're not going to break anything. I highly recommend taking more control and doing more of this in your agency instead of hiring other people to do it. I'm particular. I just don't like anybody else messing with my brand or touching it other than me. That's just me. Some people are fine with it. But that's kind of where I'm at. Any other questions before we shut this down and we get back to our day? I'm going to give it 20 seconds here or so. Thank you guys for jumping on here. I appreciate it. I don't think that there's any other questions. Well, guys, I just want to say thank you very much. If you want to reach out to me afterwards, if there's something I didn't go over that you want to go over, you just need help with, feel free to let me know. I'd be happy to point you in any direction that I can and try to instruct you. Again, it's 20% technical knowledge, it's 80% creativity. You're only bound by your imagination. Just create, and have fun with it. You'll really start to enjoy it. And who knows, maybe people will pay you for it one day. So we'll go from there. Take care, everybody. I'm going to log off now, and you guys have a great day.